Okay, so this week we're going to be reading Act 2, and I'm going to preview some things with you because I think that this would be really helpful. First thing is, um, if you open up Act 2, Scene 1, one of the things you'll probably notice is it's pretty darn long. In fact, I'm going to scroll all the way down. But there's an awful lot that happens here, and I want you to pay attention to a few things. The first thing that you need to know is the scene starts in Brutus's orchard. They're in his backyard, and he is about to, he's just up late at night, and that's because he can't sleep. And one of the motifs in Shakespearean plays is if a character can't sleep, that usually means that there's something going on with them. There's some serious conflict, or there's something wrong with them. That's a recurring theme, like in King Lear, and in like pretty much every other, like Macbeth. Pretty much every Shakespearean play that I've ever taught in which a character was unable to sleep. Nonetheless, he ends up happens to Brutus is by himself on stage at this point, and he gives a soliloquy here. And what he says in his soliloquy here is kind of important. In particular, he's thinking about turning against Caesar, and he says, it isn't that Caesar's bad now, but he could become evil later. And he uses a metaphor like, like he's a snake inside of its shell still in its egg. So with that said, and therefore think of him as a serpent's egg, which hatched would as his kind grow mischievous and kill him in the shell. The other part too is that he also acknowledges that he never has known Caesar to let his emotions dictate what he was going to do rather than logic, which is kind of a strange concession. In other words, like Brutus himself admits that Caesar isn't as bad as what he's making Caesar look out to be, but that's the stranger thing. Then what happens is Brutus comes across this letter, and we all know that from the soliloquy at the end of Act 1, Scene 2, that Cassius wrote this letter, and these letters just like it, which basically are calling Brutus to stand up to Julius Caesar. We also learn that it's when the morning comes, it's going to be the Ides of March, which is the same thing as the soothsayer. So in either case, we have this. There's somebody knocking at the door, and he goes, "Somebody knocks." So Lucius goes to go get the door, and then this soliloquy. I think this is one of the most important things that is said here. Since Cassius first did whet me against Caesar, which whet, W-H-E-T, means to sharpen. Since Cassius first did sharpen me against Caesar, I have not slept. Between the acting of a dreadful thing and the first motion, all the interim is like a phantasma or hideous dream. In other words, like he has decided he's going to turn against Caesar, but he doesn't, that's that whole nervousness between like, taking the plunge and standing at the end of the diving board, so to speak. So in either case, the conspirators all show up, namely Cassius and Decius Brutus and Trebonius and all these people. And basically, Brutus joins the conspiracy. And not only does he join, he actually starts to lead the conspiracy from the jump. Like, give me your hands all over one by one. And Cassius goes, yeah, and let us swear an oath. And right there, this is the first chance that you see that Brutus is the leader and no longer is a Cassius. No, not an oath. We will not swear an oath because we said we were going to do this in Rome. You should read it. And then, Cassius goes, maybe we should also get the Senator Cicero on our side. And, Casca and Cinna go, oh, yes, we should let him in. And the Telesimber even says, because he's old, he will appear good. And Brutus says, oh, name him not, for he will never follow anything that other men begin. So already Brutus has overruled Cassius once in taking the oath, and now a second time with letting Cicero into the conspiracy. And then the third thing is Decius Brutus, are we only going to kill Caesar, or are we going to kill some other people? And Cassius proposes that they should kill Mark Antony. And Mark Antony, so well beloved of Caesar, should outlive Caesar. We shall find him a shrewd contriver. Well, why would Cassius know a shrewd contriver? Well, it's because he is one. It takes one to know one. So Cassius sees Mark Antony as a threat, but Brutus overrules him a third time and says, no, we will not kill Mark Antony. And he lays out his reasons here. And basically, that Cassius is in control at this point, and they come up with what they're going to do in the morning and all this stuff. And then Porsha, Brutus's wife, comes out, and you should read this, but she's mad because her husband hasn't been talking to her lately. You're not communicating with me effectively. How pesky wives can do that. I kid. I'm just being funny here. But in either case, you should read what she says because it's a mark of what Brutus has been up to. And then eventually, by the end of the scene, another person joins the conspiracy. Um, Warning to you guys that listen to the play, the speaker who does Caius Ligarius, I can't understand the word that guy says. He's like, I don't know. I couldn't understand what he said. If I Brutus haven't had any exploit, would they name Madonna? Like I can't understand what the guy said. So in either case, Act 2, Scene 1 is one of the most important scenes because Brutus is officially joined and now he's leading the conspiracy. We're going to go back then. At Caesar's house, I need you to read this very closely because at the end of the scene, Decius Brutus does a really good job of getting Caesar to come to the Capitol. I'm going to make a completely separate video just about this so that you can finish your graphic organizer. But in either case, they convince Caesar to go to the Capitol, even though there's been some omens and some things that, like the dreams that Calpurnia has been having, in which Caesar gets murdered. And then last but not least, there's two other scenes, a street near the Capitol. This is a short scene. It is basically this guy, Artemidorus, reading a letter. And if it actually comes from a piece of history from Plutarch's Parallel Lives, but there was this great guy named Artemidorus who had a letter that would have saved Caesar's life. And had he read it. In history, though, the strange part is when the conspirators all stab Caesar to death, this letter is actually in Caesar's hand when all is said and done. So, but in the play, that's not what happens. In fact, in the play, Artemidorus tries to give Caesar the letter, but Caesar won't read it. And you'll see why, because that's in Act 3, Scene 1. And then last but not least, then more hijinks with Porsha acting crazy. And the soothsayer comes by and we're about to get to the climax of the play in Act 3, Scene 1. So that's what I need you to focus on as you're reading. I kind of gave you a summary of the play. Nonetheless, make sure you're listening, make sure you pay attention, and then I'll do a separate thing for the graphic organizer that we started last week that was on Act 1, Scene 2, and now we're going to have Act 2, Scene 2 in that graphic organizer.